I'd like to welcome you to this very special episode of Moments with Mo, and I have a special guest on the show tonight, and it's the APC Presidential candidate, His Excellency General Muhammadu Buhari. Your Excellency, you're very welcome to the show today. I know we met 4 years ago, but we're here again, and I want to ask you, General Buhari, why do you want to become the president of Nigeria? What is that thing that you've said to yourself yet again, 4 years later, I want to come back and I want to run this nation? Why is that? I
never said I would retire from partisan politics. And as long as I'm a partisan politician, my supporters feel that I should present myself to my party so that the party can decide whether I should get the ticket to participate or not.
So, so you're saying that you didn't really, you were being, would you say you were pushed into it?
Well, not pushed, I've been persuaded into it.
You were persuaded into it?
Yes.
So would you say that at one point you were like, okay, I think I want to just give this a break. Mm-hmm. But due to the level of support that you received, you therefore thought it was important for you to come out and run again?
Certainly, and I think the recent primaries conducted here in Lagos, I think convinced all those that are interested and are following the political development that the party has really decided, you know, to give me the ticket to contest this year's election on the 14th of next month.
So when you won that primary, how did you feel?
Well, I feel great in the sense that after all, the delegates from all over the country have decided that I'm the best candidate for the party. And it was so transparent and open. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people within the country and outside spend from early hours of the night to the following morning watching it until it was all completed.
Yes, I was one of them, and it looked like a very, very transparent process in terms of how the votes were being counted and how they were being put into a glass box. Everybody could see very clearly, you know, the numbers that were being counted. But the thing is that you've won the primaries. The next thing is, how do you win to become the next president of Nigeria? So let's say that we wake up on the 14th of February, and the votes are counted maybe by the 15th of February, and you do win. How are you going to govern us? Because the recollection that many have, they see you as a military ruler. That's, you know, in your previous, when you were head of state previously. So if you were to come back into power again, what's going to change, and how are you going to govern us this time?
Well, firstly, the APC that gave me the ticket. And if I subsequently win the election, then I have to go by APC manifesto. And what has been realized by the party are two fundamental issues.
Two fundamental issues?
Yes, okay. Security and the economy.
Okay. I just want you to share with us your leadership style. I mean, how would you lead? I mean, if there was a particular issue that had to be resolved, I mean, what's your leadership style? Would you sort of just say, let's put it to a vote? Or would you say, do you believe in something so passionately that you're going to say this is the way that you would like to see it done?
I think whichever form of government, whether military or civilian, but more particularly the multi-party democracy system, you have to go by the constitution. And going by the constitution, that means the three tiers of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, has to be seen by the people, by Nigerians, to be satisfied that each of the constitutional body is allowed to perform according to the constitution. Okay. So really, one style is limited by the constitution. By the constitution,
okay. Now, you said earlier on, and that actually brings me to my third question, about the fact that the APC is going to focus on two key areas, which is the economy and the security of our nation. These are two massive challenges that we face as a country today. So when you do become the president, taking the constitution as the guideline, how are you going to attempt to deal with the issue of the economy? How do we get the economy back to where we want it to be? And how do we deal with the issue of security in our nation today?
Well, I think what I like to believe is that the security is the first thing. Because if the country is not secure, for example, in the northeast now, the security is virtually frustrated in the sense that bombs are planted in motor parks, in the markets, in churches and mosques.
Absolutely.
So people are scared. People hardly go to the market and freely. So if you stabilize the country security-wise, then people can move freely.
So how do you get to the point from, because if you take over on the 14th, I mean when you're sworn in May, how will things change? What are you going to put into place to ensure that we are safe as a nation? How do you stop Boko Haram from being Boko Haram? How are we going to deal with that issue?
Well, we have to deal with what is on the ground. And our government has the capacity to deal with issues spontaneously, several issues. In the sense that no government can have the power to solve its problem immediately. We have to inherit the problems. Why the Nigerian military, not even to talk of the police, haven't been able to stop the insurgency in the northeast? And then quickly see how we can mobilize to stop it. And one of the ways is to get the neighboring countries, Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. I suppose the president should sit with them and tell them that our borders are so wide and so big.
So do you think it's because our borders are porous?
You have to deny the the Boko Haram elements from getting training facilities outside Nigeria and bringing weapons in.
But do you think that the current government hasn't done that?
It has done it. It did it, but it did it rather late.
Okay, so
if you are listening to the news program, you find out Cameroon seems to be fighting Boko Haram more than Nigeria.
Okay, so you're going to be looking at so your strategy would be to look at the bordering countries.
Exactly, secure our borders so that the terrorists are not able to get training facilities, neither to get weapons inside the country.
But what about those that are already in our country? What do we do with those that are on ground?
If we can stop the terrorists from getting weapons and provisions for making bombs and so on, then internally we can effectively use the military to contain them.
Back to the economy.
Yes.
Now, it's nearly 200 to 1. Nearly 200 naira to $1. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get our economy back on track? What are the things that you're going to do to stop us from being a monoproduct country whereby everybody seems to just be relying on the production of oil and gas? What other things will you do to ensure that we get the economy moving?
I think we have to move rapidly to improve agriculture. We have vast land, arable land in the country. We have a lot of able unemployed bodies that we can
80
immediately...
million youth unemployed.
Exactly. And solid minerals. There are solid minerals all over the country. Gold, lead, tin, columbite, name it. God has given it to the country. That too can be...
So you don't think enough effort you don't think this current administration has put enough effort
even the previous,
looking at those other sectors?
Not only this administration, even some of the previous administrations. We have to improve on agriculture and solid minerals just to complement oil and gas. This cannot be done overnight, but what can be done immediately is make sure that the federal government get together with the state government to make sure that the land is opened up, even into our plantations, palm oil, palm kernels, and then food production and so on.
So you think the way to go is agribusiness?
Agribusiness, and the government has to make very serious investment in agro allied industries, in agriculture itself, and in solid minerals.
Okay, so solid minerals and agribusiness. You think that's how we're going to get our economy back on track?
It will help.
It would help
greatly.
What other things would you look at in the mix?
Savings, stop wastage.
What would you save on? Where would you save? What would you cut out? What would you say no more?
I think ceremonies. I think...
you mean the federal government ceremonies?
The federal government and the state government should be encouraged, you know, to spend less money on overheads. You know, going all over the place with convoy of vehicles, you know, traveling outside the country. Very often, let us empower our institution. Let us improve our health care. Let us improve our educational system, so that people will develop confidence in them and stay at home. And then let us import less luxury goods. Let us get our industries to start, so we can get employment and goods and services.
So you don't believe in the fact that we should have an open market whereby if goods are imported, it's up to the consumer to make the decision and pay the luxury tax or not? You think we should really just focus on building our own?
Luxury and consumer goods, we have to, at this stage, we have to devise a way of protecting some of our industries. For example, textiles. I know, sure, the textile industry used to employ about 320,000 Nigerians in Ikeja, in Kaduna, in Kano, in Aba. But now, virtually the textile industry has collapsed. I don't think they employ up to 30,000. But we have got the land to farm cotton. We used to. We have got the basic industries in the places I have just mentioned.
We're going to take a break, General, but when we come back, I want us to address a certain number of issues that take us back to basics, which include the fact that we're going to need, maybe the reason why that sector is dead is because we have no power. You know, so there are 5 basic things I'd like to talk about when we come back after the break: on employment, power, education, healthcare, and corruption. We'll be right back after this break.
Long hot hazes, barefoot daisies, we can.
How do you then stop corruption from happening? Because it's so eaten away into every single fabric of our society. How are you going to deal with that? Because I guess once you can deal with corruption, it's going to have an impact on everything else.
Long hot hazes, barefoot daisies, we can be just.
Welcome back, and I'm still here with General Buhari. General, it's good to still be here. Thank you for making the time out. I said before the break that there were some basics I wanted us to sort of take a trip back to. And I know 4 years ago when I interviewed you, I asked you these same questions. And they are still on the front burner again 4 years later. Unemployment. From some of the figures I have, we have about 18 million of our youth unemployed today. Power is still a major challenge in our country. Education, the students are failing, the teachers are failing. Healthcare, and of course corruption. How would you deal with the issue of unemployment for our youth should you become the next president of Nigeria?
Well, these things took time to happen. The unemployment did not happen overnight. I'm afraid it may even take a longer time to solve it. But as I kept on saying, agriculture and soil minerals are the immediate areas that can be quickly developed, because Nigeria has the capacity. It has the land, it has, it can mobilize the capital to put able-bodied unemployed into the land, and the solid minerals. Meanwhile, the educational institutions,
so you're saying that, you know, by looking at those 2 sectors that you mentioned, solid minerals and agriculture. Do you think that's going to solve the unemployment problems that we have in its entirety or to a certain extent?
To a certain extent, but we have to also make sure that the industries are resuscitated. And how can the industry be resuscitated? Something has to be done about power. And here I believe observers or listeners will be able to recall the National Assembly again attempted to conduct hearing. In fact, they did conduct hearing on NEPA, or Power Holding Company of Nigeria, and those who succeeded them. They conducted the hearing in Abuja and in the 6 geopolitical zones. And they sent the result to the executive. I think that was the last the country heard about it.
Okay, so
it's the corruption, the pension funds, the petroleum industry, and in NEPA.
Okay, so how would you deal with the issue of ensuring, because unemployment, you said we should look at those two sectors. That would, to a certain extent, sort of improve unemployment. But, you know, maybe that won't solve all the problems we have with unemployment. But power, fine, there may be a hearing, but how would you deal with our power situation? How will you ensure that the average Nigerian can have light to do their work? What are the key things that you think needs to happen to ensure that, you know, that this problem goes away, and it goes away once and for all? I
think during the course of hearing, it was clear that about 20 billion United States dollars was spent on power.
So basically you're saying that the reason that we don't have power today is because of corruption?
It's corruption.
Right.
Because we are not able to properly award contract maybe to competent firms, you know, that can either do the transmission or the creation of power in terms of either thermal stations or improving the hydro powers we have in form of Kayenji, Shiroro, Jebba, and perhaps did Mambila or do Mambila.
But would you continue with what the current administration is doing? Because there seems to be something being done about power. There's lots and lots of smaller IPP stations being set up now. General Electric is in Nigeria. They're partnering with the federal government on sort of improving the power sector. Would you continue with those policies by this current administration? Would you change them? What would you do differently with regards to ensuring that we do get power as a nation?
Well, the situation has to be studied closely in the sense that you cannot stop projects halfway through just because that policy has failed. But you have to see how you can improve it, because an investment must have been made along the line. You cannot just throw away that investment, but try to improve on it.
Improve on it. Okay.
I gave you an example of the hydropower we have. If you improve Kayenji, Shiroro, Jebba, and then you do Mambila, which feasibility study has been completed, that will complement the thermal stations in the oil-producing areas. Okay.
So basically, you're going to work with what we have, but just improve
what you
the
have
current
on
administration
the ground.
is working on.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, education. Our teachers are failing. Our students are failing. You know, how would you deal with the issue of improving this particular sector? The universities are still on strike for literally half, you know, of their sort of annual years.
Well, I criticized the government earlier on when there was this national conference, which was not constitutional. And they said they voted 7 billion naira for it. But the National Assembly is sitting there, and this is their job. If that 7 billion naira was given to ASU and the teachers of the tertiary institutions, our children wouldn't have been at home for almost two academic years.
Yeah.
So this wrong priority of the government has really ruined the country in terms of destroying the infrastructure, destroying education, and destroying healthcare.
So I'm going to go straight on to corruption. How do you then stop corruption from happening? Because it's so eaten away into every single fabric of our society. How are you going to deal with that? Because I guess once you can deal with corruption, it's going to have an impact on everything else that concerns Nigeria, to make it a better place to live and a better place to work. How are you going to deal with the issue of corruption?
There are some feature article contributors to the Nigerian press that said If Nigeria doesn't kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. And I think if we have the opportunity to form a government from May next year, we just have to draw a line.
And say
that what happened behind us from 1999 to then, those cases that are with the judiciary, we will not touch them. We will allow judiciary to deal with them. But from that day onwards, anybody who takes public funds outside the financial instruction, outside the administrative instruction, will immediately be prosecuted.
So how do we get...
Because if you insist on investigating, you can't investigate everybody. And you may find out even...
so you're saying that, for you, what you're saying is that you would look at immediate prosecution of...
What cases are with the judiciary?
Yes.
Investigated cases in our courts, the government will not tamper with that.
Okay.
But the government will draw a line from that day onwards. So from 30th of May onwards,
yes.
Anybody in charge of funds at any level in government must be held accountable. And the audit will be made viable.
So, okay, so it's about, what you're saying is that there must be a process that will be put in place to ensure that, so are you saying that there is no process now?
The process is there. You go to any ministry.
So there's a process. So we're saying that the process is not being followed.
It's not being.
How are you going
ignored.
to ensure? How are you going to ensure that that process is followed? Because that is the problem.
By applying sanctions. If you go to any ministry, any prestataire, there is financial instruction, there is administrative instruction, but they are ignored.
So we're going to make sure. So how do we make sure that they're not ignored?
By applying sanctions.
Sanctions?
Yes.
So, General, what you're saying is that corruption will be dealt with by ensuring that there are adequate sanctions imposed on the guilty party from 30th of May onwards. Yes. It will not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form.
Correct.
Right, okay. But how do we then, the people, hold you accountable to that promise that you've made us?
Because we will tell them that there are enough laws in the country for accountability. Public funds, any public fund from the Treasury must be properly seen to have been utilized according to the law. And there is structure on the ground about auditing system from top to bottom, Ministry of Finance, Central Bank, to ministries, to parastatals. They should be followed.
So you're saying that you're going to run your government and your administration strictly by the book?
Well, you can call it by the book, but then laws are meant to be obeyed.
Yeah.
And the checks on balances must be applied.
60% of Nigeria's population today is our youth. How are you going to cross that generational divide? Do you tweet, Facebook? How are you going to sort of interact with this new generation, our leaders of tomorrow? Some of them even are leaders of today.
Well, they are part of the society. They are going through all the discomfort the society is going through. You have mentioned the quality of education. They are the biggest victims.
Absolutely.
But you cannot build classrooms, equip them, put qualified teachers by decree. The damage has been done.
So we're going
As you ask, students fail tests, teachers fail tests.
Yeah.
How can you break that vicious circle?
How? Please tell, how are you going to break that?
The way I see it is to go back to the fundamentals.
Absolutely.
A question of accountability. We must make a big investment in infrastructure, in equipment, and teacher training.
So it's back again, do you think, to having the right leader lead to ensure that we can tick all those to-dos that we need to do?
Virtually at all levels. You have to get
levels.
competent ministers.
At all levels. Yeah. Okay. Now, talking about, leadership, your running mate is Professor Osinbajo. How do you intend to work with him? You both have different religious beliefs. You come from different backgrounds. He is your running mate. Tell us a little bit about how you would run together with him in terms of how you would lead with him.
This is how Nigeria is.
Back to the Constitution.
It takes all sorts. The Constitution of Nigeria guarantees freedom of religion. You can be anything. Muslim, Christian, animist, atheist, but you are a Nigerian.
First and foremost.
But the fundamental responsibility of government is to secure life and property of all Nigerians. And he's going to be an asset. I am a Muslim, okay. He is a Christian. He has an experience. He has been a Commissioner of Justice and Attorney General of Lagos State. And Lagos as a state is a small Nigeria. There are all tribes and everybody. It used to be even the headquarters of the capital of the country.
Absolutely.
So he has got the background.
So you think together that you're a formidable team?
Exactly. And I also understand he is a minister in one of the very strong churches.
Yes, absolutely. So, should you win, General, what would you try to achieve in your first 100 days in office?
I will try and get the correct position of security and economy. What we are discussing is what we read in the papers or what happened in our neighborhood. We don't know the amount of intelligence that the law enforcement agents were able to gather and deposit with the government. What the government has been doing with that intelligence. Have they been respecting it, cross-checking it, and working on the recommendation, or have they ignored it? That is the immediate thing on coming to office to make sure that you identify the serious issues from just rumor mongering and what is in the papers.
And how to solve those
and how
issues.
to solve them and set your priorities.
Okay. And just one very last question before we wrap up this interview. Lessons learned. If you look back over the years when you were the previous head of state, and even outside of being the head of state, what are some of the key lessons you've learned that you think will stand you in better stead as you go forward, should you be elected as the next president of Nigeria?
You just have to know at which level economically and security-wise a country is.
Yes.
We are back to square one. That's what I said by breaking the vicious circle. We refuse to devalue the naira. We refuse to remove subsidy on petroleum by whatever definition. We refuse to remove subsidy on flour. And we are servicing medium and long-term debt according to according to agreement. And people and Nigerians took all those for granted.
Yeah.
The naira was not devalued. But now you are telling me naira is about 200 naira.
Well, it's in the
200
190s.
naira to the dollar.
Yeah.
It used to be 1 naira to $1.4.
As we wrap up this interview, General, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the fact that you've granted us this opportunity to spend time with you. But what closing words would you have for our audience today on EbonyLife television, watching this, this very special interview? Just to give a little bit of background on EbonyLife television, we are known as Africa's first global black entertainment network. We are in all of Africa, including South Africa. And our main key demographic are the youth, aged 18 to 34, which is 60% of Africa's population today. What would you like to say to them?
Anybody in opposition, if it is a couple with their family and so on, let them please ask Nigerians to get their PVC, permanent voters card.
Go and get your permanent voters card. Go and vote.
Go and vote and make sure your vote count.
Yes, make sure your vote
counts. This is the biggest favor they will do to themselves and to their country.
Yes, exactly. Please, the General has said it. Please pick up your PVCs and go out and vote. That's the most important thing we can all do as Nigerians. General, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure again catching up with you. And to our viewers at home, thank you so much for watching. Do have a good night.